We've already briefly mentioned the adrenal glands when we mentioned the branches of the abdominal aorta, and these are just little glands that are just above the kidneys. They're also called the suprarenal glands as well, which is just going to be this little yellow-shaped structure above the kidney. The urinary bladder is just posterior to that pubic symphysis, and this is going to be storing the urine. We also have urinary bladder rugae, which are also folds in the bladder itself on the inside that just allow the bladder to expand. There are also ureteral openings, so there will be two ureteral openings, one for each ureter, the left and the right. And then there's only one urethral opening. That's just going to lead to the urethra, and we'll talk about what that is in here in just a moment. The trigone of the urinary bladder is this triangle that we'll see in just a moment that's formed between the two ureteral openings and the urethral opening. Now, what's interesting about this trigone is there are no rugae in this location, so there's none of that extra folding. The urethra, which is attached to the neck of the bladder, is just going to be the tube that urine can leave the bladder and go to the outside world through. So here is our bladder. We can see the ureters dropping down from each kidney on each side. So this little hole here on either side are the ureteral openings. We see all the rugae, all these little folds right here that allow it to expand. Then down here at the bottom, we have the urethral opening. And so this dotted line does a really good picture of showing you this trigone, this triangular shaped structure between the left and the right ureteral openings here and the urethral opening. Now, if you notice the trigone, there's no rugae. None of these little folds found on the trigone. Now, the urethra is a little bit different in a male versus a female. In a male, there are three regions to the urethra. The first one is the prostatic urethra, which is surrounded by the prostate gland, which we'll talk more about the prostate gland in Unit 4. The next section is the membranous urethra. This is just going through some of the muscles of the pelvic floor, and that's where the external sphincter is also located. And then we also have the penile or spongy urethra, which is a continuation through the erectile tissue. And then we also have the external urethral meatus, which is just the hole at the end. So here's the bladder on a male, right here. So this first section of the urethra coming out from the bladder is the prostatic urethra. Then we have this little short region right here going through the muscles of the pelvic floor, and that's the membranous urethra. And we also see that external sphincter, which is what these muscles are right there. Then the rest of the tube going through the rest of the organ is the spongy urethra. And then the hole at the end is the external urethral orifice. We'll discuss the male reproductive system more in Unit 4. In females, the urethra is very short, so they don't have regions to it. It's just the urethra. But it'll also have an external sphincter and an external urethral meatus as well. And so looking at the female, here is the bladder right here. And then there's a short urethra before it goes through the urethral meatus, and it goes to the outside world. And that concludes Chapter 12.